Welcome to New Hampshire's Electronic Direct Certification video, Part 2. If you have not already created an account, you should watch Part 1 before continuing with this video. If you have, then you're all set to move forward. This presentation will include a bit more information about the different methods of accessing information, as well as the POS, which is the point of service or place where the student goes to school. So let's get started. First, take a few seconds to review this slide. Now, let's sign in by you will select here when you sign in. This is your login page. You will put your information here and log in. Next, you will select here and then Direct Certification. Direct Certification data is updated on a monthly basis, with the most current data available within the first 5 days of every month. To use the website to its maximum effectiveness, you should select the query option that meets your immediate needs, or you can use a combination of query options. As you can see, there are 3 query options available, which are Eligible Roster, Query by Individual Student, and Query by File. Now let's go back to our original presentation to learn more about these query options. So the first is Eligible Roster. This data reports all students in the SAU that are eligible for direct certification. So the query is done by SAU, which is determined at the time you created your count. You can select by current or previous school year, and the roster can be sorted in several ways. The report is shown by SACID, name, date of birth, district, school, and the date first eligible for all students found in the direct certification query for your SAU. Data you gain from the eligible roster is through a CSV file. CSV stands for a comma-separated values file, which is how the information is originally set up. There'll be more about this in our next presentation. So what I'd like to do now is to take you back to the electronic site and demonstrate what I have just spoken about. Here we are at the eligible roster place. You will select the SAU, and I'm going to arbitrarily choose, let's find a big one. Let's find a large SAU. So I've selected Bedford, and I'm going to run the eligible roster report. And here it is here. Now you can see that these are the fields that are accessible, and you would add all this information that we just discussed. This is the district. You can select the school. You can select the first eligible month. And then down here is the data. You can also sort the columns. So you can sort them by SACID, by last name, first name, and so forth. It also gives the date first eligible. There are advantages and disadvantages to using this particular query. The advantages is that you don't have to add any submission. You don't have to add any data. It's also easy to print, and there are sortable rosters for your needs. And for schools with limited technology, this is perfect. The disadvantages is that the only current data that is there has already been submitted through I4C. It may not capture all students that are currently enrolled. For example, If a student enters school in the middle of the year, the data might not have already been added, and then you would miss that student. Likewise, it may also still have a student that is no longer enrolled. This method is also not easily imported into the POS, which is the point of service. The next query is by file. Here, you can upload and process your entire database at once. And you can search using SACID, having a valid 10 digits, or you can use a name and date of birth combo. So what I'd like to do now is to take you back to the electronic site and demonstrate this. To use the query by file, you will select how you're going to add information. Are you going to use the SACID number, or are you going to use this method? Whichever way you select, you will then go to your computer and browse for the file, upload it, and then run a query by file. One of the advantages is that it's not district sensitive. It's flexible. It exports and originates from the POS. Remember, this is where the student usually goes to the school. It also exports and can be saved and easily run. Some of the disadvantages is that you need to know the SACID or the name and date of birth combo. You also need to check for errors. There may be errors in transporting names and numbers from the POS, so you want to make sure you are cross-checking the information to make sure that your information is completely accurate. It's also complicated to use at first. However, once you get the hang of it, and as usual, things do become easier. It also takes a few minutes to get your information based on file size. Also, just a point about a query by file. When you search for your information, if you are searching by SACID, this must be in the first field. However, if you are searching by name, you need to make sure you are following this format. And please note that MI and gender are optional. After you've added this information, you may add and enter any data that you may like to receive. So the last query is by student. Here, you locate the student by their data using their SACID or their name and date of birth combo. So what I'd like to do now is to take you back to the electronic site and demonstrate what we have just spoken about. Here we are at query by individual student. As you can see, you would add your SACID and then run the inquiry or the query, or you could do it by name, first and last, gender, and date of birth, and run your query. Again, there are advantages and disadvantages. Query by student is it's not district sensitive. The entire household is eligible. However, if the student is a foster student, only the student is eligible and not the student's biological household or the household that they are living in. It's also quick and easy to verify a student eligibility who has not submitted an application. Some of the disadvantages is you need to print the screen. One student is processed at a time, and you absolutely need to have the SACID or the name, date of birth combination. So, you have just received a lot of information. Let's take a short moment and consider the types of queries. What were the three that we discussed? If you've thought about query by eligible roster, query by file, and query by student, you were right. So let's move onward. Now that you have your account and you know the types of queries, you're ready to experiment with locating data. So go ahead and do this. When you have experimented with the three query formats, you're ready to go to the final stage and learn more about how to download your direct certification file. Thank you for participating in this video.